No, see, you can only see from here down.
Okay.
That's it.
How's that?
Kind of,
Right.
yeah. This was live, is it?
Yep.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Sunday at 4 from Upper Trosnham Baptist Church. Really great to be able to share with you again this afternoon. And as we look at the weather at the moment, it is raining. Now, just to show that this is British weather, it's raining today. It was sunny and bright yesterday. That's what happens, isn't it? Our weather is like that. And I'm sure that's why people talk about the weather so much. If it was always the same, they wouldn't have anything at all to talk about. But the thing is that we know that the weather is also governed by the seasons of the year, whether it's spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And the Bible tells us that those seasons will continue on the earth. It's a promise that God has made, that those seasons will carry on. And so the seasons change from one to the other. That is part of God's promise to us. And not only the seasons in terms of weather, but also in our own lives. There are seasons for things, aren't there? Seasons when we do certain things. For example, when we're growing up, we have a season, I suppose you could say, when we're in school. Season after we've left school, we are in work for maybe however many years that might be. And then towards the end, there's a season which is called retirement, maybe. And again, that happens too. So there are all of these seasons, all of these times. And the thing is, it is true to say that in the same way, seasons are not just random. These times are not just random either. And the Bible tells us that these seasons are put there by God. It is God's good plan and God's good purpose that there is a season or a time for everything. Yes, a time for the weather seasons, a time for the seasons of our lives. In fact, a season for all types of things that happen. So I'm going to read some words from a book in the Bible which is called Ecclesiastes. And that was written by a very wise king by the name of Solomon, one of the wisest men who ever lived. And he realized that there's a time for everything. And so Ecclesiastes chapter 3 reads like this: there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. And as we look at those different things, that pretty much sums up, doesn't it, all of life in one way or another, a time for all of those things. I mean, even if we look at our world at the moment, if we look at the terrible things that are going on in Ukraine, war and peace is talked about here. And God knows that these things are happening. These things don't take God by surprise at all. He knows exactly what is happening in these situations. And there's a time for these things to happen. And so what I want to share with you this afternoon is this. For each of our lives, there are times when things happen. And people who follow Jesus, people who are Christians, there is a time in our lives when we turn to Jesus, a time when we turn from what we were before and come and follow Jesus. So as well as all those other things you just read, there's a time for, there's a time to follow Jesus. Now you might ask, when is that time? When is the time to follow Jesus? Well, I'd say to you this, the time to follow Jesus can be any time while you are alive on this earth. You can come to him right now, this afternoon. As you're watching this, you can turn to Jesus. And this today could be the time when you know him. And so I'd invite you this afternoon to consider coming to Jesus. Because Jesus is able to offer you forgiveness. He's able to offer you peace. He's able to offer you a perspective on all these things that are happening in our world. And even though we say the time to come to him is now, if we do come to him now, then the time that we're with him extends beyond this life. It extends into the life beyond. When we leave this world, we've already read, the first thing that was there was a time to be born and a time to die. And that certainly is true. All of us will leave this earth one day. But if we are putting our trust in Jesus, we know that when that time does come, we will go to be with him forever. He will provide, or has provided, what we need for that to happen. As he came to earth, as he lived, as he died, as he rose again, he provided what we need to make sure that we can be right to go to heaven with him forever. And so, as I say, my message this afternoon to you is this. Just remember there is a time for everything, as this passage tells us, a season for every activity under heaven. And I hope, I trust, I pray that for all of us watching this afternoon, this will be the time, this will be the season when you, for the first time, come to the Lord and put your trust in him for all the benefits that that brings. Well, thank you so much for watching, and may the Lord bless you all.